There we go. So this is time for your Raw Sport Quaran-Stream for week 3. I am your head of sport, Josh Sim. Welcome back to another week of well, there's been a lot of football action as we're going to talk about, a lot of Champions League, a lot of Premier League, and plenty of discussion and talking points for sure. We've got quite the panel as well. But of course, a few housekeeping notes. All our social medias in the video description. A couple of things we've done recently as well. We had recently for the Black History Month programming. I was lucky to interview the founder of the Arthur Wharton Foundation, Sean Campbell. That is now available to listen to on both on our YouTube and Spotify. For those who don't know, Arthur Wharton was one of the first Black professional footballers, also one of the first individuals to run 100 yards in 10 seconds. So it's a really fascinating story about him and how Sean came into contact with the story and the work the foundation does. So please check that out. That's there. We also did an F1 special on Thursday, myself, Joe Spagnoli and Cam Hall, which it started off sensible, then we ended up with a virtual track tour and talking about what tattoo Cyril from Renault was going to get. So if you want a bit of that silliness as well, that's also on our YouTube channel. So with that all said, let's bring on everyone that we've got today. So as usual, because you promised me a rant earlier this week, and I'm very, very excited to hear it. It's Joe Spagnoli.
Afternoon. Rant is still being prepared, but it will definitely be ready on time because I'm not angry. I just laughed an awful lot when I heard news about the European Super League.
Yeah, we'll get to that. And I'm sure our other panelists have some stuff to say about it as well. So again, we'll bring on two guys who we had the first week. They took a break and then came back. So we've got, and I'm sure this guy has a lot to say about Champions League football this week. It's Ben Parkinson.
Afternoon, guys. Yeah, a lot to say. A bit more positive, hopefully, this week than the first week.
I mean, as a neutral, Manchester United are one of the most confusing teams to analyse. Like West Ham are at the moment. The other person you might recognise from a few weeks ago, back with us today is Jay Smalley. Jay, how are you?
Hello. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
really excited to talk about the Champions League.
Yeah, of course. And then
interesting results.
Yeah, there's a lot to dive into. And our special guest, last but not least, former head of sport, former program controller, and currently Mr. Retro Raw at the moment. It's Ed Farrar.
How are we doing?
It's great to have you, man. First of all, because you've been everywhere at the moment. Radio Today podcast. I saw you on the was it the Alternative View as well with Cam Hall.
What an honor!
How's the last week been? How has it it's a bit surreal to talk about a project that you'd been obviously had been in the works for so long. Is it surreal to now talk about something that's going to happen next week?
Scary, I think, is the right word. This has been in the works for about a year. We've been working on this on and off, not full time. It's really intensified over the last 3 or 4 months, but so much work has been put into this, so much time and effort from so many people to try and celebrate the station. So it is very surreal because we put the promo video out and having worked on that, it's seeing actually go out and seeing people reacting to it and seeing our project in the Radio Today website and their podcast and everything. It's really surreal and it's super exciting. People seem to be loving it. We're getting loads of reaction and we're getting loads of support from all sorts of alumni. So going really, really well. I'm so excited for everything to kick off this Monday.
Yeah, it is, and we should let people know who haven't seen promo. It is, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's 50 hours of uninterrupted programming on a pop-up station that we've created specifically to mark the celebration. It's a surreal thing to be part of. Joe, I know you're part of it as well, and I have been as well. Talk to us about what can people? I mean, how can people, I guess, listen to all the stuff? And then say if they don't, because I know obviously it's all kind of at a certain time point shows will come on. So if they miss a show, how can they find it as well?
Yeah. So it's all going to be on the Radio Warwick website for the whole 50 hours. So you can listen to all sorts of shows live. Kicks off at 1 p.m. Monday, and it's 50 hours. Apart from there is 1 hour of interruption, and we have a takeover from a presenter called Sue, who's been kind enough to take over for 1 hour of the schedule. But yeah, it's with 50 hours of uninterrupted programming. And as you say, there are some shows on at times that maybe aren't the most accessible potentially. For example, Raw Sport is on at 6 a.m. And if you want to avoid waking up that early, all of the shows going to be archived. So you can listen to Josh's joyous look through Raw Sports history at a different time. It's all going to be on the Retro Raw Mixcloud, and every show is going to be available the instant that it finishes on air. So it's all going to be there, all going to be archived. Obviously, we'd love for you to listen live, but if you miss any shows, you can find it all on the Mixcloud. And there are so many really, really cool shows in amongst this that I just think people are going to love. So make sure to listen, check out the schedule. It's on our Twitter, on the Raw Twitter, and make sure to listen back to anything you miss on the Retro Raw Mixcloud.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and share my screen and see if we can get the promo video up. So bear with me while I do this. Can everyone see the? Just let me know. Can you guys see the screen?
Yeah.
There we go.
Look at this.
Right, let's see. There we go. Does that work? Yeah.
Lovely.
Nice. There we go. Joe, I mean, you can hear your voice on the on a lot of the stabs and a lot of the jingles.
Joe is one of the two voices of the station, which is a big boost.
I want to say it's because of my my artificially dulcet received pronunciation accent. However, it's definitely because we're, of course, recording most of this virtually, and I happen to have a Blue Yeti, which has made my voice sound a lot better than it otherwise would do. But nonetheless, I'm grateful for the opportunities. Yeah, my voice pops up on... It will be popping up throughout the 50 hours. I've already plugged on the F1 show the other day, the specific stuff that I'm doing, as did you, Josh. But yeah, being involved in the production with this was great fun, actually. It definitely gave me something to do over the summer as well. Also put together a couple of shows with the Morning Glory crew. That'll be on at, 2 a.m. in the morning, Ed? And
1 a.m. Tuesday morning.
Oh, 1 a.m. That changes everything. And also a music show coming on, I believe, midnight on Wednesday, opening up the Wednesday. Good luck staying up that late. Although, to be honest, if there is any hour where you can listen to incredibly obscure indie music, it's probably just after the turn of a new day.
Yeah. I'm just going to see if does this work? Yeah. So luckily, and I'm talking specifically about the Raw Sports show. Obviously, we've been blessed to have a lot of alumni. Ed, I know I do want to firstly thank you for interviewing the likes of John Bennett and Tim Peach, who are featured heavily on that in the Raw Sport Hour. We also used a lot of Adam Mountford's speech from his speaker series in 2018, which you can see now on my split screen. Adam Mountford, who now produces Test Match Special on the BBC. Is one of our alumni, and that was a joy to kind of edit. But what was it like talking to the likes of John Bennett and Tim Peach?
Really cool, really, really cool. And I mean, I was head of sport, so I actually organised when Adam Mountford came in for that speaker series, and he's by far. I mean, I know there's a lot of other names that maybe are a bit more notable in terms of the presenting side of things or on behind the scenes, but Adam Mountford, the Test Match Special producer, is by far our coolest alumni. He gets to travel around the world and produce the BBC's cricket coverage. There's nothing better than that. He's such a great guy, so passionate about student radios. It's great. And then Tim Peach also does a lot of the BBC cricket stuff. I think he does a lot of the content side of things, BBC Cricket, and John Bennett as well. They all came through W963 or Raw. as it's been known over the years, and they've been involved with the Saturday show, Raw Sports Super Saturday, as it's now known, which is the longest running student radio show in the world. It's been going 29 years soon. 29 years, I think. So it's gone on a long time. I don't know, 28 or 29, I can't remember. But it's been going on so long, and there's so many people who've come through that as well. And it's really nice to speak to them and see how they went on, especially for someone or people who want to go into a career in sport journalism after working in student radio or whatever. Hearing their stories, hearing how they got in, hearing how passionate they are about what they did is really inspiring. So yeah, that was super cool, especially on the sports side, because as a former head of sport, I've got to represent the department a bit. It's by far the best department, obviously. And there's so many cool alumni that have come through Raw Sport. So it's been fabulous to speak to all of them.
Yeah, it was really cool. And not only did we, obviously we had a lot of, interview moments with those three, but I think I do give a shout out to Alex Thomas, who I believe is now CNN sport anchor, who also came through the station, which is really cool. Joe, I know Joe, that was my reaction when I found out. That was my reaction when I found out someone had gone on to do, CNN Sport, which is also really cool. And David Rowe as well, who's a freelancer. Who has worked for Eurosport. I believe he and John Bennett recently tweeted about how they'd caught up. So that was a really cool thing to kind of go through. At least those five, and I'm sure there's plenty more who, unfortunately, I didn't give a shout out to on the show, but I'm sure there's plenty more who've gone on to do amazing stuff. And if I add the screen there we go. So Raw Sport is there, 6 o'clock on Wednesday. Joe is a few hours ahead on Indie Wave. But yeah, we're in between charity broadcasts and alumni memories, which is a lot of fun. And yeah, I think that, unless I'm wrong, I think that's it when I go scour the Twitter account. But yeah, super excited.
100%. And there's so much good stuff in there. There's really so much good stuff. The sports show is great, obviously, but away from that, we've also got some really big names on, which is super exciting. On the Monday, we've got Leona Graham from Absolute Radio and Dave Lamb, who is the narrator of Danger Mouse and Come Dine With Me. So they're on the Monday night. We've got kids TV presenter Timmy Mallet on the Tuesday, as well as Abby McCarthy, who does BBC Introducing Kent. And the big one for me personally, which has been so exciting, is Stephen Merchant, who is on Tuesday at 8 p.m. With the Steve Show Revisited. It's a show narrated by Adam English, the Union Jack Breakfast presenter, and the show kind of goes through all of what Steve did back in the day in the 90s. We go through the show that he did called The Steve Show on W963. And it takes a look back through all of the stuff that he did, along with kind of his thoughts, which we got to interview him, which is super cool. So it's his thoughts alongside that and how his time in student radio really inspired his comedy and stuff. So that is a really, really interesting show. So that's Tuesday at 8 p.m. And if you're interested in comedy, because Steve wrote The Office, Extras, he's involved obviously with An Idiot Abroad. He's done so many cool things. If you're interested in his comedy origins, and I guess some sort of comedy origins for things like The Office and Extras and that, listen to that, because that is a really, really cool show. But no, the whole schedule is really, really exciting. And there are so many names on there that we're really pleased to have. And hopefully it's going to be really, really fabulous.
The surreal thing, I guess, when recording the Raw at 50 show was sort of me thinking, oh, goodness, in 25 years' time, in 50 years' time, it's going to be it'll be us who will be the ones kind of considered the alumni and being interviewed and stuff by whoever takes on the mantle, it was sort of scary, but also kind of like, it was very surreal. I think, a lot of people put a lot of work into this. So I'm really excited to see how everything's turned up. Obviously, you've spearheaded the campaign. And so, yeah, man, I'm really proud of what everyone's done. I'm really proud of what you've done. And I can't wait. I can't wait for it starts on Monday, doesn't it?
Starts on Monday, yeah. It's 1 p.m. Monday, kicking off with the launch show. And then we finish at 3 p.m. on the Wednesday with a special show looking at what Raw is like today and what it's like to be involved with the station now. So, yeah, really, really exciting. Really, really cool. And it should be fabulous.
Yeah, I think I mentioned towards the end of my show, I think I said, we'd obviously love to be in the radio studio and doing live commentary Super Saturday style, but here we are
Here we
on,
are.
on StreamYard in the middle of a pandemic, which, I mean, to be fair, I think, I think I mentioned that it'd be great to kind of marry up the two approaches, new school and old school. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And so moving away, I mean, obviously, one of the things that I took away was that Leicester City wouldn't let Warwick presenters back in the 90s into Premier League games, which is annoying because Coventry let us in and Aston Villa let us in, but not Leicester.
Yeah, but Coventry are a bit tin pot, aren't they, really? I mean, it's not that important, really. I mean, Leicester's a bit of a trek. It's a bit of a trek to get to Leicester. I feel like, I don't know, pop off to Coventry. Leicester, and also I think Leicester may be a bit nicer. I feel like Leicester's quite a nice club these days, if that makes sense. Like we were the one Premier League club who voted against this whole 1495 thing. The owner gives fans free beer at the end of the season. We seem a bit more family friendly than we used to, which I think is nice.
Yeah, and speaking of Leicester, and I mean, you're a huge Leicester fan for those that don't know. It's been after last season, I guess, was a successful one, I guess. Obviously petered out towards the end, but you got European football, and then what have you made so far this season? Because there's been ups and downs. Certainly, it's not been smooth sailing.
It was a struggle, and we really petered out last season because of injuries. By the last game, we only had one member of our starting four fit. And it's the same thing this season. We started off really, really well. We thrashed Man City. And then obviously we've lost against Villa and West Ham. And, it's really disappointing, obviously. But I think if you just look at the players who are injured at the moment and who haven't been playing recently, then it's pretty easy to see. You could make a fair argument that our 5 best players have been injured or have been in limited capacity. Ricardo Pereira was out most of the end of last season and all of this season so far. Wilfred Ndidi's out for the next couple of months. Kagalos Soyuncu's out for the next couple of months. James Maddison's had limited playing time. Jamie Vardy's currently not playing. So those are our 5 best players who are all not playing at all or in limited capacity. So it's always going to be a little bit tough. But it's been nice to see a few other players step up. I think Harvey Barnes has been pretty good. James Justin and Castagne have been pretty decent at the start of the season at fullback. And Kelechi Iheanacho's looked really, really sound, actually, playing up front the last couple of games. If he starts scoring again, like he did at Man City, I think he's going to be the guy to take over from Vardy. I think he's been really, really good. So, yeah, I think I'm trying to stay positive over this because losing to West Ham and Villa after thrashing Man City is very weird. But if you look at our injury list, especially given we don't have a very big squad at all, which is a very Brendan Rodgers thing. But he has tried to fix, but the owners don't really want to overspend at the moment, understandably. It's a weird situation. But I think I had this argument with someone else who just left Raw, Luke Edwards, who was part of the sport team a while ago. But we theorised that if you look at a full strength first 11, Leicester has the 2nd or 3rd best in the league. Ignore the substitutes and the whole squad because we don't have a squad. But if you just look at the first team, we're actually quite strong. So that's nice. And yeah, it has been weird, but pretty optimistic.
Yeah, Ben, I want to bring you, obviously, because Man United and Leicester at one point last season were pretty much neck and neck. Do you see, how impressed were you, I guess, by Leicester last season? Do you see them as a team that's going to continue to kind of push the so-called Big Six throughout at the top of the table throughout this season?
Yeah, I was very impressed by them. I thought they were amazing. Obviously, for the most part of the season, they were ahead of my team, Man United, deservedly so. And I think, to be honest, the injuries they did have probably did benefit teams like Manchester United and Chelsea. And ultimately, it was probably that squad depth they didn't have that meant that they missed out on top 4. I think they will continue to push this the top 6. I think they're a fantastic team, and I think they've got a fantastic manager. They do have really good recruitment. I think obviously the issue is just the consistency, and I think squad depth really probably does come in hand with that. But they're a very dangerous team, and I hope that they can get a few players back because they're a joy to watch when they play their best football.
Yeah, and I mean, and I look at they play Arsenal. It's Arsenal versus Leicester on Sunday. Are you that face? Okay, that reaction already says. I was going to say, are you optimistic? But that reaction kind of gives it away.
I'm never optimistic against playing Arsenal because they aren't very good, but we don't beat Arsenal. And we went 25 years not beating Arsenal. They beat us twice in the title-winning season. They thrashed us 5-2 at the start, and we only won. We beat them for the first one in 25 years at the end of Arsene Wenger's term, which was great. Obviously, beating Arsenal was great, but then it meant that we didn't sack Claude Puel. So playing Arsenal, whether we win or lose, is never a good thing. And I'm not over. And I don't think with the players we have out, we're going to hurt Arsenal as much. I think players like Ricardo Pereira would probably rip Arsenal to pieces, to be honest. I think that pace down the wings and then having a quality striker like Vardy to finish stuff off would make us, very dangerous for them. I think that they have issues against pace a lot of the time. We don't have Ricardo Pereira. Vardy may not play, and he won't play at full capacity if he does. And then also losing Ndidi, who's just solid presence in the middle of the field, is an issue. Kaglar being out isn't as bad because Wesley Fofana has actually been very good, but it's still a huge hit for us. So, yeah, if we had our full strength team, I think it'd be a really good game. But I'm just never confident against Arsenal. I'm not overly confident at the moment.
Yeah, Jay, I mean, as a neutral looking at this game, do you kind of agree with Ed that Arsenal should be considered the favourites here? I mean, because both teams, I guess, they played out some entertaining encounters last year. I remember, I think Leicester beat Arsenal in the first one, and then I think it was a really kind of thrilling draw. So where do you see this game going on Sunday?
I would agree with Ed's assumption, and also what Ben said about the lack of consistency in the Leicester squad. I think if you look at their performances early on this season, they haven't really shown. Yes, they've got some quality wins. They beat Man City 5-2, but they've also lost to West Ham 3-0. Admittedly, West Ham were good for Villa 1-0. And they conceded 2 goals against Burnley, who's one of the lowest scoring teams in the competition at the moment. So I think they will really struggle against Arsenal.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting one. Obviously, Jamie Vardy's fitness is. I don't think we know if he's confirmed yet to be playing or not, but obviously Joe, having the likes of Jamie Vardy, whose pace can really kind of terrorize any defense against an Arsenal team who they weren't that impressive against Rapid Vienna on Thursday, and Ben Leno really struggled playing out the back, and David Luiz made mistakes at the back again, and Vardy against those guys would be a huge boost if you were a Leicester fan.
Definitely, but Arsenal now have the luxury of not having to play David Luiz since they signed Gabriel Magalhaes for that centre-back position. He's actually looked an awful lot better. Nonetheless, I think pace is one of the few things that would really unlock that Arsenal back three. Vardy not being available completely changes, for me at least, the way that Leicester approach this game. Looking at the wing positions as well, I mean, obviously losing Ben Chilwell in general is a problem, especially from the defensive side, but Ricardo Pereira being absent on the right in particular, it just means that the pressure you would normally have exerted on your wing backs in that Arsenal system just isn't there. I'd be interested to see who Leicester actually play out wide in this game. Maybe Timothy Castagne, but again, do I trust him against Arsenal's wingers? I know Castagne's had a good start to the season by and large, but I don't rate him as a winger. For me, he is always, as a wing back rather, for me, he has always been a wide midfielder, prioritising attacking. He was the least defensively adaptable of the 3 Atalanta players in that kind of position. So yeah, I would give Arsenal the favourite status for this match, partly because of their history, of course. But yeah, I think irrespective of home away allocation, I think Arsenal are the stronger team, at least in these current injury and COVID circumstances. However, just saying that, the amount of predictions that we've made so wrongly this year, Josh, it'll probably be a Leicester 4-0.
I feel like you've either reverse jinxed. I don't know who you've jinxed in that last sentence, to be honest. I thought you were going one way, then you kind of reverse jinxed it the other way. So I'm very confused. Ed, I mean, final question on Leicester for you. I mean, what are your expectations for this season? Like, what is the kind of the preferred outcome for this season? Like, where do you see Leicester finishing? Yeah,
I would be happy with top 8. Maybe, yeah, I would be okay with it because I think if the pandemic hadn't happened, we'd have got top 4 last year, I think. So I think it really hurt us playing under those circumstances with the lack of depth we had. And that would mean we're playing in the Champions League, and then we're in a whole different scenario. But this year, I think top 7 would be nice, especially given Everton and Wolves are looking really good. So if we can secure top 7, that would be really, really nice. And then if we have a nice Europa League run, that would be great. We don't get to go to Europe that often, so our group isn't overly strong. So I think quarterfinals of the Europa League would be nice, along with a top 7 finish. But yeah, a nice little cup run. The quarterfinals would be nice. I'd really like to get to the semi-finals, really push up there, build a bit of excitement around the club in Europe, and then consolidate and hopefully have the same European outing next year.
Yeah. That feels like I can imagine a cup run would be very exciting for Leicester fans. Just finally, before we let you go, I know you're obviously a big NFL fan. The Bengals. I remember we had you on during the draft show, and I remember you were really excited about Joe Burrow. But I don't know. Maybe is it because AJ Green's not quite hit the heights that you thought they would? They've not had the greatest start to the season. What are your thoughts? The
Bengals. It's weird because Joe Burrow has been surpassed expectations. He's been great. He's been I think this is one of the better rookie quarterback seasons you'll ever see. It's just he's playing for a not particularly good team, unfortunately. And there's loads of issues for the Bengals. The offensive line doesn't block for him because they're not very good. I thought it'd be better this year because we got a first-round left tackle from last year who was injured all last year. We brought in right guard Xavier Suafilo from the Cowboys. Of course, he got injured, and then his replacements just haven't worked. It's been a rotation of awful players. Bobby Hart at right tackle hasn't been very good either, really. So the offensive line hasn't done great for him. And then AJ Green coming back until last week against the Colts, where he was actually all right. He's just not been a factor. So the offense has been okay. It's just if we had got a right guard in this year's draft, I liked Solomon Kindley from Georgia in the 4th round. We took Akeem Davis-Gaither, the linebacker from Appalachian State, and said, who's been really good, and that was a really good pick. But I feel like a guard would have been really nice, maybe, and he could have come in for Michael Jordan at left guard and been much better. So the offense has been because of that issue. But I think we're building up a little bit. Defensively, we're a mess as well. Jesse Bates and William Jackson have been really good, 2 of the best secondary players in the league. And all of the linebackers we've got, Logan Wilson, Josh Bynes, Akeem Davis-Gaither, have been pretty good. But the defensive line is just a mess as well. DJ Reader, our big free agency signings, injured. Geno Atkins is barely playing. Carlos Dunlap clearly hates the coach and wants to leave. And then because of the injuries we've had, actually our 3 first-choice defensive tackles are all injured. We're playing guys off the street. There's no pass rush. It's a complete mess. And it's very weird as well, because I feel like there's a situation with the Bengals where we're ready to win. We're ready to win 6 or 7 games. We just don't know how to. We should have beaten the Chargers, should have beaten the Eagles, beat the Jaguars, but everyone beats the Jaguars, should have beaten the Colts. We should have won 4 games at this point if we were clutch, but we're not. So I don't really know. I think next season we'll be a better side, but I think before the trade deadline, we just need to cut Carlos. We need to get rid of Carlos Dunlap, get rid of all these older guys who are on big contracts who are trying to create discontent in the dressing room. Carlos Dunlap's very annoyed about his role, and it's really weird because he's been such a stalwart, but he's one of 2 players in the Bengals locker room who are trying to suggest to the media there's a big rift between them and the coach. There's not, because the other 50 guys are quite happy, seemingly. So get rid of the dead weight, John Ross, Carlos Dunlap, Sean Williams, trade them all, get picks for next year if we can, and then hopefully next year will be better. So there's promising signs. We just need to work out how to win, which for any other organisation would be fine, but for the Bengals is horrific and daunting because we just don't do it.
Yeah, T. Higgins has been a nice find.
T. Higgins has been great. T. Higgins has been great. So honestly, the wide receiver pool in the 2020 draft was stacked.
Yeah,
and I don't know. I felt a bit iffy about T. Higgins because he had Trevor Lawrence throwing to him, and that makes you look instantly better. But he's been really, really good, and I think his hero was AJ Green growing up. He grew up a Bengals fan of AJ Green, so actually having him play with AJ Green is really, really nice. And I think he's going to replace AJ effectively. Because if AJ Green can step up again, great, looked good against the Colts. But going forward, having another number one receiver like AJ is fantastic, because everyone talks about the quarterbacks being like the main thing. You have a franchise quarterback. AJ Green's basically our franchise wide receiver. He's our franchise quarterback, because you look at the win percentage when he's playing and when we're not. We're a really, really good team when AJ Green's playing. We're an awful team when AJ Green is not playing. So hopefully he steps up. But T. Higgins has been great as well.
Yeah, it just came to mind. I remember during our draft show, you weren't too high on Justin Herbert, and lo and behold, Justin Herbert outperforms all expectations for the Chargers so far.
I think so. I had Justin Herbert as my fourth favorite quarterback. I liked Jordan Love more. The things I didn't like about Justin Herbert were I didn't like him on short routes. He overthrows too many simple throws, which is a thing Baker Mayfield's really struggled with, as has Mitch Trubisky. So I didn't like that. I thought he was a bit poor under pressure. He looked a bit panicked when the pass rush came. And I just didn't think he was that. I didn't think that he could deal with a complex NFL scheme, because the Oregon offensive scheme, I watched the Oregon offensive scheme, it was so dull. There's lots of short passes, screen passes, and it just looked like they didn't trust him to do anything. I think what this has shown is that whoever's Oregon's offensive coordinator should be executed, because he's been really good. He played behind a great offensive line at Oregon. We had Penei Sewell, the best tackle in about 5-10 years to come through college, who's going to go in the 2021 draft, and a couple of other good offensive linemen. So when I saw him being panicked under pressure with a really good offensive line, that worried me. But then he's come to the Chargers with an awful offensive line, run all over the place and thrown it everywhere. So clearly the issue, I think, was Oregon's offense. And I'm not going to say I was completely wrong yet, because I still think Tua's going to be really good. I still think Jordan Love could be really good. And Justin Herbert still hasn't won a game, which I know, given how good he's been, may seem ridiculous, but he hasn't won a game yet. I know he's played Drew Brees, Tom Brady, etc., etc. He hasn't won a game yet. So I think I was wrong, but I think Oregon would have won. I think Oregon the issue here, because if they had used Justin Herbert like the Chargers have been using him, they would have been a real force in the college playoffs. So, yeah, I'll admit I was slightly wrong about him yet, but I am not ready to say that he is not the fourth best quarterback in that draft, because I still think Burrow's clearly better. Tua, I think, is going to be better if he comes in. He's coming in now as replaced Ryan Fitzpatrick as start of the Dolphins. I still think he'll be better, though Herbert's been great. And Jordan Love is going to go into an ideal circumstance at Green Bay. So Justin Herbert's been great. I will admit I was slightly wrong about him, but I'm not yet ready to say that he's a better pick than Tua or Burrow at all.
Well, continuing the Raw Sport tradition of getting predictions wrong and then having to walk them back, as Joe and I have.
Very strong. I think I offloaded the blame very, very nicely there onto Oregon rather than my clearly awful talent management.
Yeah.
No, he has been really good, and he's done all of the things that Oregon stopped him doing, like running around and throwing it down the field and all of these cool things. Clearly Oregon are the issue, which is weird because they have a really nice kit. And I think that usually means that you're a good team in college football. But yeah, he's been really good though. It's nice to see because I liked him, not as a quarterback, but as a person. He seemed really sound, lovely bloke. So I'm really glad he's doing well. And it's great for the Chargers as well, because they had Phil Rivers for so long, who is very good, but also a statue. Having that maneuverable quarterback who can run around like Justin Herbert is going to be really cool for the Chargers. And if he keeps doing what he's doing, he could be incredible for them. So great for LA as well, because he's going to be their franchise quarterback forever, and it's going to be cool. So I'm not fully backtracking yet, but I'm still a little bit reserved, but he's looked really, really good so far.
Yeah, and it's something we'll continue to monitor on Raw Sport with Raw Sport Weekly, talking about the NFL. Ed, I know you're busy, so I know you've got a whole lot of shows to upload at the moment. So,
good man, you'll
just before you go, do you want to quickly? I know we mentioned at the top of the show how people can find Raw at 50, but do you want to just quickly reinforce that for those watching?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can listen from Monday at 1 p.m. on the Radio Warwick website, as long as it doesn't crash. That's radio.warwick.ac.uk. And you can find all of the schedule details on our Twitter. That's at Raw 12:51 a.m. There's all of the details there. You'll get sneak peeks of some of the shows we're doing. And then you can listen to it all again on the Retro Raw Mixcloud. So check out the schedule. We've got loads of cool stuff. Stephen Merchant Leona Graham, Dave Lamb from Come Dine With Me, Ritu Lashar. Great schedule, super exciting, and hopefully everyone's going to love it.
Yeah, man. I like I said, very excited about it. I know everyone who worked on it is incredibly excited to have people beyond listen to it. So and Raw Sport will retweet or we'll repost whatever social media posts come out as well. So Ed, thanks for stopping by, mate. Enjoy the uploading of shows. Which
I will. You can't stop me. It's so much fun.
And wishing that Leicester and the Bengals do well this weekend.
I can only dream. It would be nice. I think just one more Bengals win. We're playing the Browns. We just please beat the Browns because they're the one franchise who are traditionally worse than us generally. So it would be so nice just to beat them. I'm just begging for it, really. I'm praying. All my fingers are crossed.
I do think it's a good game. It'll be a good game for you guys. But anyway, thanks so much, Ed, for coming on, and we'll see you in a bit.
See you guys.
All right, there's Ed Farrar joining us for that first half hour. A lot of Raw at 50 stuff coming next week, which is super exciting. So please check out all our socials. Let's talk. Well, I'll do a quick score update because there is a Premier League game going on at the moment, and that is Crystal Palace are 1-0 up away at Fulham. Riedewald scored for them across the continent. Bayern Munich lead 2-0. Leipzig are drawing 1-1. And I believe El Clasico it's 1-1 at the moment in that game as well. So a lot of football that's kicked off at the moment, but we're going to talk Champions League while keeping an eye on those live scores because there was plenty that went on, and we'll start with the Tuesday, and here are the Tuesday scores. And Ben, I mean, the big one in Paris, I remember you weren't that confident when we talked about it a few weeks ago, but lo and behold, Manchester United, and I know I need to update that ticker for a sec, but I believe Man United they delivered beyond your wildest expectations.
Yeah, no, 100%. I was extremely negative before the game, and then they came out in that hideous kit, and I was even more negative. But I think on this show and so far this season, I've been a massive critic of Manchester United. So I think praise is due when it's justified. And I feel like on Tuesday night it was a good game. I don't think either of the teams were particularly amazing. However, I think we were the better team. But really, the one thing that stands out in terms of performance for me was Axel Tuanzebe. I thought he was phenomenal. I thought he had a great game. I've been a big fan of him for a long time. It's just been the injury trouble. But I thought he came in and he really just kind of pocketed Mbappe and Neymar along with Wan-Bissaka, but we've seen that before. So I think there were a lot of positives to take from that game. I don't want to get too carried away because, again, I feel like it was partly PSG not being good enough that led to us taking advantage of that. However, it looks like it's more of a direction, and it's definitely a really helpful result for Chelsea later on this afternoon.
Yeah, Jay, were you surprised by this result? Because again, you looked at United's form coming into the game, and then obviously PSG, I think Neymar had like a whole week of rest beforehand. So everything seems stacked. The deck seems stacked against United. And then Marcus Rashford, who, by the way, off the field is doing some incredible stuff on his Twitter feed. He's an incredible human being at the moment. But on the pitch, he also delivered a moment that kind of really, it drew first blood in this group, because you feel like that goal could be crucial into determining how the group kind of plays out.
I was actually I was feeling that United were going to win coming into this. I don't know if it was just the kind of leftover euphoria of that penalty last year in the 3-1 victory. But I've been in the pub earlier in the week watching Man United beat us 4-1, which was very disappointing. But I thought they looked extremely good, especially going forward in those games. Especially in the last minutes, they really pressed our defence really hard and exploited it thoroughly and got 4 goals in the end. And I was thinking that maybe, they can replicate that against PSG, because PSG, they do at the end of the day plague in Ligue 1. Their defence isn't tested on the regular because it is at the end of the day quite a weak league. And coming up against Man United, I think Man United did extremely well to exploit their defence. And got a good result.
Yeah, Joe. I don't know. I mean, do you have any thoughts on this game before we move on? Because, like I said, it was for me. I mean, granted, I know United. I knew United could easily win this game and prove me wrong, but just on paper, it just seemed like a straightforward PSG result.
I mean, obviously, we were going on the form that led up to this fixture in particular. So I think you said it would be 3-1 PSG. I said 3-0 PSG. More than happy to be proven wrong on this occasion. I completely agree. Manchester United were the better team. Although, to be fair, Ben, I'm actually quite partial to that kit. Maybe it's just me. What was funny was that Marcus Rashford, after being as Gab Marcotti said on ESPN, a lot of the criticism aimed at Marcus Rashford on social media has been just stick to football. Well, on the biggest stage in club football, Marcus Rashford actually did pretty damn well the other night, so it seems like he's succeeding in all walks of life. We've already talked about this group and how if Man United got off to a bad start, there's a good chance they wouldn't even make it out of it. Between this result, which is probably on paper the hardest fixture in the group for Manchester United, and my prediction of Leipzig smashing Başakşehir not coming true, they only won 2-0 over a team languishing at the bottom of the Turkish Super League, I think Man United are actually fairly well placed now to get through this group. As you say, in a group of small margins, 3 points either way makes a huge difference. So I think even if Man United don't necessarily impress for the remaining 5 games, second place should be more than achievable.
Yeah, and obviously next week, match day 2 kicks off. So it is literally the Champions League is upon us. It's happening. And United host Leipzig on Wednesday night. So Ben, how confident are you towards that game? Does this win give you a lot of confidence towards the rest of the group stage?
It definitely does, 100%. And I think if we got a win against Chelsea later on again, that is a good 3 results in the lead up to this Leipzig game. There's always just that problem of what Man United is going to turn up, because we see it every like over the past few years. It happens all the time. However, I do think that we should be able to finish that game, especially with the squad depth. I've seen Van der Beek come off the bench, and against Newcastle, I think he played a massive part in all of those goals. So I think we should be able to win that game, and I think for fans it's much more of an increased confidence and as we will watch it.
Yeah, we will. We'll come on to Man United, Chelsea in a bit. But yeah, Leipzig, who are drawing 1-1 with Hertha Berlin at the moment. Upamecano, actually, and there's just been a red card in that game, so it's a 10-man Hertha Berlin holding Leipzig at the moment. Upamecano scoring for them. So Leipzig, Jay, I mean, you watch a bit of German football. Leipzig will be a tough test for them, and they've started the Bundesliga campaign very well as well. So if you're looking at teams that are in form and primed to go out there and get a result in Manchester, Leipzig would be one of them.
Absolutely, I've been so impressed with Leipzig this season already. I thought they were going to really struggle losing Timo Werner to Chelsea, but actually the entire team has picked up the pieces and has really come together. Yusuf Poulsen, I wasn't a massive fan of him last season, but he's really filled in that role. And I mean, Angelino, Man City have kind of just palmed him off to the side. But last season he played well, but this season he's really come alive. He scored twice against Başakşehir in the Champions League, and I think he's actually so far that the games that he's played in all competitions, I think he's already outscored the entirety of his last 2 seasons, which is just amazing how much he's come alive. So yeah, I think Leipzig top of the Bundesliga at the moment. I think they'll be a real threat coming up against Man United.
So I believe we should probably give predictions across the horn for this game. Joe, I mean, we obviously got it wrong for the PSG United game. So United Leipzig, do we bet against United again, or do we now back them to do the job?
In a few minutes, Josh, I will go through all of the predictions that we got wrong for the first round of Champions League.
Great.
Because this is an extensive list. However, I'm going to say 2-1 Manchester United.
Yeah, that's sort of where I'm going to go 3-2 United. Ben?
I think for the first time, I'll go for a Man United win. I'll agree with Jay, 2-1.
Jay?
I think I'll agree with Josh, 3-2. I think that Leipzig have shown so far that they can score goals, but I've been really impressed by the way the Man United's been playing overall. I think.
I can't wait for it to be a goalless draw now that we've given those predictions. A quick note, Joe, on Chelsea-Sevilla. Chelsea, I couldn't believe this. This is the first goalless draw that Chelsea have had under Frank Lampard, which is astonishing. And obviously they had Edouard Mendy in goal, which obviously, I mean, his presence, I think, does much to boost the Chelsea defense, given the state of their other goalkeepers. So a goalless draw against Sevilla, is that a good result for them? Defensively, obviously it was improved. But yeah, what was your thoughts on this game?
Sevilla didn't really look on it, I dare say. I mean, maybe they were preserving energy for the league, or indeed going into the other fixtures in this group, which I think they can comfortably win. I still think Sevilla are going to top it come the end of the group, but yeah, it's just a really insipid game from start to finish. I mean, I've only seen the highlights, but I mean, if the highlights of that game were as dull as the ones that they pulled out, then yeah, really not particularly entertaining. I mean, Edouard Mendy is crucial. However, he's a Chelsea goalkeeper, so we'll see just how long he remains top class for. It'll be so good just to, I mean, they're obviously Kepa's still in the team and draining up a large chunk of wages, but just getting him off the pitch, because on top of being a bit useless relative to other top flight goalkeepers, he's also just thoroughly unlikable. You can get the sense that in the last 6 months or so, the team, the personnel in front of him are just absolutely fed up with his antics. So Mendy is absolutely crucial. But yeah, there's very little to take from this game, Josh. Again, we were predicting some kind of, attacking masterclass where Timo Werner would line up against Lucas Ocampos and we'd see 4 goals going in throughout the match. Nope, didn't happen.
No, both teams kind of shut up shop, really. There's not a whole lot. I mean, we'll talk about a bit more Chelsea specifically when they go on to take United on in a bit. But like you, I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about. Any other result anyone wants to talk about on this on Tuesday before we move on to the Wednesday? Jay, I
have one game that I didn't think I was going to watch, but I was like, okay, I'll watch it. And I watched Zenit play Club Brugge. And I thought it was Club Brugge. I follow Club Brugge a bit because I really rate Charles de Ketelaere. He's a young Belgian player who's just come through into their team, and it was one of the most exciting games, not in terms of like overall output. It's 82-1 in the end of the final score, but tactically, Club Brugge just blew me away. So I don't know. Is there any way we can get the lineup up?
Yeah, I can get it.
Yeah, the one on Google is wrong.
It's not that one then.
Well, we'll quickly say while you look that up is that Dejan Lovren scoring a long-range goal is something I'd never seen as a Liverpool fan, and was very pleasantly surprised to see that he can do that for Zenit. It's almost like the Branislav Ivanovic effect. Like you go away to play for Zenit and suddenly you're a rock star. Yes, Joe?
Did it not go down as an own goal?
I don't know. He sold the celebration pretty well. I'll say that. He sold it pretty well, as if it was his idea to come up with a worldie. Jade, dude, just jump in.
Yeah.
As soon as you got it.
So can I press share screen and that'll?
Yeah, that should work.
Do I think?
Cool.
I'll quickly say while you do that. I watched Lazio Dortmund on Tuesday, and it was the Dortmund was. It was there. We go.
Cool.
Before I go on about that.
So I did a little bit of reading afterwards, and what I was interested to find that actually they played this game with Dennis and Ketelaere at striker and the number 10 role, and neither of them actually out and out strikers. They both play on the wing, and that was strange because they were two of the players who impressed me the most. But the real heroes in that Bruges lineup were Vormer and Van Aken, because for the first half of the game, Zenit were really trying to push really, really, really hard and just confund them, cut out passes and just keep Bruges firmly into their own half. But they really, end of the day, failed to do that. Yes, Bruges didn't score in the first half, but Bruges were constantly on the front foot, and they had a couple of chances which maybe they should have scored, but they were doing really well against a very impressive attacking defensive side. And when Zenit tried to get forward, they've obviously got Zuber, and Zuber has been fantastic for Russia in recent years, and he was utterly confunded by their defense. But the real standout moment for me was Ketelera's goal in the 90th minute. I mean, tactically, it was a joy to watch. You know, Vorma and Banaken just were stringing passes together, and Ketelera was just there. You could see him making his way in from the right-hand side, and he just comes in and gets a brilliant tactical team. It wasn't like, a wonderful, 25-yard screamer, but it's just to see such a nice, tactically well-worked goal with just a series of beautiful passes, which is really, really nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the more, when I saw that result, I thought that's a really good result for Club Brugge. Go to St. Petersburg and get pick up an away win. Yeah, what I was going to say about Lazio Dortmund, it was Dortmund are very Jekyll and Hyde under Lucien Favre, and that was just not one of their good days. It was disappointing for them. But anyway, we'll move on to the Wednesday. I mean, look, I don't really know which result people want to talk about, actually, because Group A, we saw Bayern kind of wallop Atletico, and we thought Atletico were going to make it difficult for them. But no, that didn't turn out to be the case. We saw Real Madrid be outclassed by a second-string Shakhtar side, which really is the surprising result. And we saw Liverpool come away with a 1-0, a precious 1-0 win at Ajax in a game where they kind of soaked up a lot of defensive pressure. So, Ben, I mean, I don't know. First of all, I have no idea if you watched any of the games on Wednesday. You can probably tell us if you did, and which result, I guess, stood out to you on the Wednesday.
I watched the Liverpool Ajax game, which I regret because it was a very bland game. I think I was doing loads of other things while I was watching it, so I wasn't paying much attention. But I think then again, it just shows Liverpool's ability to just snap up, get the 3 points. Which ultimately is what champions and winners do. I was extremely disappointed with the Atletico Bayern game, although obviously Bayern won and it was a big scoreline. I remember saying before how that was going to be my favourite game because obviously Bayern plays such a high line and Atletico Madrid potentially the best counter-attacking football team in the world. So I thought that was going to be a really interesting lineup, but it wasn't. And as people have said, the red engine goes on with Bayern Munich just dismantling some of Europe's best teams.
Yeah, I'll just quickly plug my conversation with Jordan Massiel, who covers Bayern Munich for UEFA.com, and he and I both, we were of the same opinion as you, Ben. We thought Atletico are going to be a tricky test for Bayern, and then Tolisso smacks one in from 40 or 35 yards, and it becomes a whole lot easier. And Kingsley Coman looks like a world beater. So, yeah, that was a surprising result. I mean, you say you watched Ajax Liverpool. I mean, we haven't really discussed on air the Van Dijk injury because that happened a bit. Well, it has now emerged that he will miss a significant part of the season. Did you buy the Gomez-Fabinho partnership? What did you think of that?
I admire Fabinho. I think he's done an excellent job so far. However, I still just think Gomez has had injury troubles. So then all of a sudden you've got Fabinho and Matip, who's also have injury troubles. So I think it is an absolutely massive loss. I remember as soon as at the moment it happened, I thought that's it. They're not gonna win the title. That's them out. However, I think Fabinho's brought some stability to that, which is more positive. But I'm still, just in terms of squad depth and the sheer amount of games this season, I do really fear for Liverpool. And I think in January, they're going to have to dip into the market for a centre-back, even if it's just for cover.
Yeah, we'll talk about their Premier League hopes in a bit. So we'll talk about the Premier League and how much that affects their title hopes for sure. Jay, is there a result? I mean, I know I'm guessing you watched or saw some of the Real Madrid Shakhtar result. That was such a surprise to watch a Shakhtar team who, as we said, 13 or 14 of their first choice players who were out for either COVID or for whatever reason, and still they came away with a 3-2 win.
Well, it's just Shakhtar's Brazilian army just strikes again. I just thought I watched a little bit of it. But then I had to go and do some work for a seminar, so I didn't get to finish it. But I saw the first 2 Shakhtar goals. But wow, Real Madrid were just horrendous defensively. It was just so haphazard. They were just giving the ball away and just allowing Shakhtar's winners just to really penetrate deep into the half, get a ball in and get a goal. And that's how they got the first 2 goals. And then, after I stopped watching, they got another. And They managed to pull back, and then Valverde thought he got a third, but it was ruled off for offside. But yeah, I just was in the first half, just really wasn't impressed with Real Madrid defensively at all. It was just, quite frankly, abysmal.
Yeah, Joe, I'm just going to let you can rattle off all the predictions we got wrong, and then I guess give some analysis to each one we got wrong. So the floor's yours. Just tell me why you and I last week got it spectacularly wrong in terms of our football knowledge and predictions.
Well, the quotes that I sent you at 1 a.m. on Thursday morning were mostly from me, although you were implicated in these, so don't think you get away with this. Okay, Shakhtar are a very solid team in terms of structure, but on paper their personnel is the weakest in this group, and with 10 to 11 players out due to COVID or injury crisis, this will be an easy Madrid win. Bayern are my favourites for the competition. However, if anyone can defend and effectively counter-attack against them, it's Atletico Madrid. Just a reminder, Bayern won 4-0. If Inter Milan want to get through their group, they absolutely need to beat Gladbach at home. They didn't, 2-2. And the most glaring in terms of the financial implications, that if they want to survive come the January transfer window, Marseille need to finish second. They lost 1-0 away from home against Olympiacos. The ones I didn't write down were my prediction that Lazio would finish either third or fourth in this group and be completely undone by Borussia Dortmund. Just a quick reminder, Dortmund lost 3-1 at the Olympico against Lazio. Other games, obviously, we said PSG would beat Manchester United. We've already been through that. Ajax versus Liverpool, we said it would be a question of which team remembered to defend in a high-scoring game. Again, it was a 1-0 to Liverpool with an own goal, being the only particular goal scored. The only unsurprising result of this group, because I even wasn't expecting Barcelona to score as many goals as against Ferencváros as they did, was Midtjylland versus Atalanta. And considering Atalanta's recent form in the league, in fact, they've literally just lost 3-1 at home to Claudio Ranieri's Sampdoria, a far weaker side on paper. It looks like for the first half of this season, Atalanta are going all in the Champions League, which is what they didn't do last year. They only just made it through the group because they were prioritising the league so much with that very thin, effective squad that they have. But yeah, Atalanta versus Midtjylland, they look fantastic. As you would expect, Atalanta scoring 4 goals, offensively deadly. It looks like they've rotated their defence well as well. Christian Romero's come into that centre of the 3 centre-backs and done really well. But yeah, Josh, I mean, I think we just need to make a full-time retirement from predictions now. Analysis, roundup, review, sure, we can do that. Predictions, no.
Yeah, I think if anyone wants to question our credentials as a Raw Sports team, feel free. Because I mean, look, I believe we were confident in what we've said as well, which makes it worse.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, the joys of sports radio, eh? So yeah, I think we've covered the Champions League pretty well. I mean, I'll quickly have a look at next week's fixtures and see if anything stands out. And indeed, Juventus Barcelona, that stands out. Ronaldo Messi, a battle between those two. Of course, we just need to check and see if Ronaldo actually plays or not, because last I checked, he's still tested positive for COVID. So should he, let's assume he makes the game, Ben. Juve Barcelona, 2 titans going up against each other. Who's going to get the last laugh, do you reckon?
Oh, it's a tough one. I think both are going through some sort of rebuilding process. Koeman got a lot more experience as a manager. I don't know. I think it's one I don't want to predict. It's one I just want to watch, because I feel like it's a really, really satisfying feeling for football fans if Ronaldo does play. So I think it's just one to really enjoy and take in, and obviously avoiding making a prediction because it will probably be wrong anyway.
Well, yeah, I think Joe, I think you've just scared everyone off making predictions now. I think that's what you've done. Juve Barca, I mean, why not? Let's just go around the horn and make predictions. Joe, do you have any thoughts off the top of your head? I mean, it is sort of stringent on if Ronaldo is going to play or not, because if he is, great. If he isn't, then I guess is it harder to predict if he does play or if he doesn't play?
I don't want to make any serious prediction going into this game, considering there's so many independent variables going into it. What I will say, though, is that Andrea Pirlo is experimenting on the fly with this Juventus team, and with the vastly improved quality of Serie A's mid-table, that is getting punished already. So they're going into this game with an awful lot of pressure, no effective system as of yet. I'm sure that by Christmas they will have something, but right now it's far from ideal. Barca look good against Ferencváros. Again, maybe doesn't mean an awful lot in terms of teams that are going to challenge for this competition. But on account of the fact I'm going to be wrong either way, 5-4 Barcelona.
Oh, great. Yeah. I watch how that becomes the actual scoreline. I was going to go safe and say 1-1, but you've really just blown my prediction out the water. Ben, you still don't want to commit to a prediction?
I'll go with the opposite of my instincts. I'll go with a 0-0 draw.
Okay. Jay?
I was just looking at Juve's results in Serie A before I got on here, and like you were saying about Pirlo experimenting, it's just a real mixed bag, and I just have no idea if they're going to turn up against Barcelona, and I'm going to go with it. They're not going to turn up, and they're going to lose 3-1 to Barcelona.
Fair enough. Looking at the fixtures, I think United, Leipzig, and Juventus, Barcelona stand out on the Wednesday night. And if I look at the Tuesday night, there's quite a few fixtures. Obviously, Shakhtar Inter, repeat of the Europa League semi-final. Gladbach against Real Madrid's an interesting one. Likewise, Atletico Salzburg, Atalanta, Ajax. So a lot of interesting fixtures, for sure. Before we jump into the Premier League, there's a few things I want to touch upon. First, we'll just do a live score check. Robert Lewandowski, surprise, surprise, has got a hat-trick already for Bayern against Frankfurt. They're 3-0 up. Joe, you can just never bet against him. Leipzig.
Another goal.
Oh, has that actually been? It is 4-0.
That's number 4. Who is it? Hasn't told me yet.
No, neither. We'll get to it when we get the score. Leipzig still drawing 1-1 against Hertha Berlin. Palace lead Fulham 1-0 away. And as Joe, you said, Atalanta, they lost 3-1 against Sampdoria. And at halftime in the El Clasico, it is Barcelona 1, Real Madrid 1. Fede Valverde's goal cancelled out by Ansu Fati, who is probably one of the hottest wonder kids at the moment. So
Leroy Sané.
Yeah. Okay, that's Leroy Sané. That's good. I think that's that's not his first Bayern goal because he scored against Schalke. We'll do a quick
scored against Schalke.
Yeah, it's very easy, Joe. I think if we put together a raw sport team against Schalke, we'd have a chance.
Stick me at right back, I'd probably get 2 assists.
All right. Okay, you want to be I get the right backs, the in vogue position at the moment. So I get why you want to be put there. We'll do a quick news roundup, and I say news roundup. This is to talk about. Project Big Picture came and went, and now it's been supplanted by this European Super League. Joe, I know. You messaged me on Wednesday specifically to say I have a rant about this. And I said, I just gave you permission. So I feel like I have to just turn to you and say, what do you want to say about the European Super League?
Yeah, I look forward to improvising some fury / Schadenfreude about this. So this is the proposal it started with a planned readjustment of the Champions League, increasing the amount of teams to 40/48 and replacing the round of 16 with a second group stage. Of course, those old enough to remember the Champions League in the early 2000s will remember the second group stage and just how boring it was every goddamn year. The Super League's been kind of like the whole Beneliga thing between the Belgian and Netherlands leagues. It's kind of been going around for years, but it seems to be picking up more and more traction over the course of the COVID pandemic with the financial implications on the European super clubs, which, of course, proportionally speaking, are nowhere near as significant as the impact it's had on smaller teams. Again, more on that in a bit. It emerged this week after the defeat of Project Big Picture, fronted, of course, by Liverpool and Manchester United's ownerships, that both Liverpool and Manchester United are in serious serious talks of joining a so-called European Super League, which would be between 16 and 18 teams from across Europe's top divisions, playing in what is effectively a European league system each year, which may replace the Champions League, may replace the Europa League. We don't entirely know. However, with the amount of fixture congestion and how much these big clubs complain about the amount of football they actually play, we can assume that in a lot of cases, they would actually secede from their domestic leagues. And on top of Manchester United and Liverpool being involved in these discussions, we now know that Arsenal, Chelsea and Manchester City are, with Tottenham Hotspur, a likely either sixth or group appearance in the European Super League. I was watching a debate from, and this is the bone I have to pick about this whole thing, because yet again, I've been right where Sky Sports has been wrong. Sky Sports hosted a show called The Debate. I'm sure we've all seen it on YouTube. And on the 30th of August last year, John O'Shea, Phil Babb and the then Plymouth manager Ryan Lowe hosted a debate about the proposed reforms to Champions League football and the concept of the European Super League / private members club, where there's absolutely no consequences for doing badly, because of course there's no relegation, no promotion, nothing like that. And they said that obviously no one is in favour of this in terms of the fans. The managers don't like it. An awful lot of the players aren't particularly keen on it either. We've had alumni of so many clubs, even Andrei Shevchenko a few days ago, saying that it would destroy club football as we know it. These three so-called pundits on the debate, which was actually quite difficult to find. I suspect that Sky Sports are trying to hide it, considering how badly they got it wrong, were saying that this was not supported by the English establishment whatsoever, and that it was actually an Italian /Serie A advancement that was being pushed by the Italian authorities, based on the fact that Andrea Agnelli, the CEO of Juventus, who I will remind you is one man from one football club who does not represent the whole of Juventus or indeed Italian football in any feasible way, was pushing the Super League and was going to make it happen. Just seeing the ticker at the bottom of the screen. Thanks, Josh. Of course, he is still a supporter of the Super League, as is Florentino Perez of Real Madrid. However, if you ask the management of Real Madrid, if you ask the players, they are all against it. Incidentally, Serie A hosted a vote on the proposed European Super League earlier this year, as indeed they've done before. One club voted in favour of it. That was Juventus. Everybody else either abstained or voted against, with 15 of the 20 clubs completely voting against it. A similar vote was hosted in the Premier League a few months ago. The reports I've seen, although it's largely under wraps, 3 clubs voted in favour of it, 15 against. The other 2 were abstentions. So quite frankly, there is an awful lot more support for the Super League in the English Premier League than there is in Serie A. So it's clearly not a kind of Serie A project. As for La Liga, again, only one team is in support of it. You can guess who it is: Real Madrid. Even Atletico, Barcelona, Sevilla are all against it. Now, the proposals for the Super League, whether it's 16 or 18 teams, we know that at least 5 English teams will be a part of it. That could well increase to 6 with the guest slot, assuming that that is the case in a 18-team league. That is 33% of teams in the European Super League coming from the English Prem, which is even more unrepresentative than what the Champions League has become, with the slots being given to the top 5 leagues, either 3 or 4 to each of them, which I personally think is far too many. It's called the Champions League, not the teams that finish 3rd and 4th league. But what you've got to remember is that the major motivation for the Super League being introduced at all is, of course, TV money. Project Big Picture, aside from some derisory improvements towards lower league football that may have protected some clubs, was largely described as a power grab by the English top 6, especially Manchester United and Liverpool, reducing the chances of them getting relegated and bringing TV money further and further towards the top 6 clubs. Only 3 years ago on Raw Sport, we were hosting a debate about the top 6 clubs in the UK, asking for a larger share of the TV money to take on the European giants, because of course English clubs have done so well in Europe over the last 10 years. That was obviously voted down, just like Project Big Picture. I'll remind you yet again that a few weeks ago there was another vote in the Premier League about the $14.95 pay-per-view charge on top of all of the subscriptions and payments that are already required to watch English domestic football. Only one club in the Premier League voted against this, which was Leicester City. The TV rights money that would go into the European Super League, which is currently proposedly being bankrolled by a $6 billion debt payment from JP Morgan, would overwhelmingly benefit the bigger clubs, obviously, going into the competition. However, proportional to the rest of their TV club income, the Premier League teams would be the ones benefiting by far the least. And yet they are the ones in greatest support of the competition. I don't need to tell you that there is a shortage of TV rights money in Serie A, in La Liga, and in the Bundesliga. And yet, with the exception of one team in Spain and Italy, every single one of them voted against it. My club, AS Roma, would benefit massively, even as a guest slot in the Super League with the TV money coming in. We voted against it. Fiorentina, if they were to go in for whatever reason, they would benefit massively. They voted against it. The same goes for Inter. The same goes for Barcelona and Atletico in La Liga. They voted against it. The Premier League teams are in advanced discussions for it. And quite frankly, at a time when Bury went underwater, at a time when Bolton damn near went underwater, at a time when football is already becoming more inaccessible than ever, the English top 6 teams are really prepared to throw domestic football history derbies like the North London derby, Arsenal versus Tottenham, Liverpool versus Everton, even the rivalry between Manchester United and Everton, that would all completely go out of the water. And they're prepared to throw all of that away for a few extra pennies of TV money, whereas the clubs in Europe that actually would benefit, proportionally speaking, are not. You know what, Sky Sports, call this a Spanish-Italian project all you like, because it's looking pretty bloody English from where I'm sitting. End.
Do you feel better now, having got all of that off your chest? Because I was timing that. I was timing that, and I think you went like 10 minutes or something like that.
I mean, yeah, probably needs cutting down. But honestly, I said this was going to happen months ago. I knew what Project Big Picture was ultimately going to be about, because we all knew it was going to get voted down. No team outside the top 6 in the Premier League would feasibly support that when the TV money is so much against them and they stand a risk of relegation. Of course, they were going to push to a Super League. And I'd like to point out that the fans don't support this in any European country. I hope I'm right in saying that Ben and Jay are against this, even if their clubs would benefit. No one is in support of this. The managers don't want it, the players don't want it, the fans don't want it. But again, the English top 6 have proven time and time again that they do not give a damn about domestic football. They don't give a damn about what the fans want, and they are more than prepared to make football more inaccessible than ever if it means they get a little bit more TV money. Boom.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a rest now. Ben,
I need some water.
Yeah, I thought so. Ben, I mean, you see United. I mean, United seems to be in the headlines for these. I mean, I know we think there are more clubs obviously behind the discussions, but it's them and Liverpool who have been named publicly as driving the idea. What was your reaction to it? And I know you sort of alluded to it when Joe asked that question, but I'm guessing you're not in favour of any of this.
No, not in favour at all. I think Joe did an absolutely tremendous job there explaining it. I label the whole thing football superiority complex, because we see it within everything. And yeah, I think, speaking to Liverpool fans as well, seeing my club's name on there, it just upset me, to be honest, because I think it's unbelievably wrong. It's just there is this hierarchy, and it's the same with the EFL. There's no sort of like head of the EFL. The EFL is just the clubs. And that means that all the clubs are going to do is vote for them. It's such an individualist culture, what has been created now in football, and most predominantly in English football, as we've seen now, and it's been exposed. And I think it's just really sad. It's ruining football. And yeah, that I mean, Joe summed it up brilliantly. There's no more to say other than I think it's a disgrace.
Yeah, Jay, I would say that part of the attraction of the Champions League format as it is right now is that we get to see teams like a Midtjylland, teams like even RB Leipzig years ago wouldn't have been considered in the elite of Germany. Teams like RB Salzburg as well. I mean, I know those are because they've been taken over significantly by a billionaire, and obviously they're not great examples, but part of the attraction is seeing new teams show their stuff on the biggest stage. And so this kind of concept would take away that kind of novelty, if you like.
Yeah, I think it would absolutely destroy the Champions League and Europa's League. I was actually just looking at a really good quote from Luis Figo, which I think perfectly sums up the situation. A European Premier League would destroy football. He said that talks over a European Super League are all about greed and keeping the game for a few elite clubs. And I think that is completely what it is. I think it's nothing more. then a money grab that will, of course, bring up so much revenue for those clubs in terms of broadcast rights. But not only will it destroy European football as we know it, but also it will completely destroy the entire league system, because they'll just be getting, Bayern Munich will be getting more and more money, Juventus will be getting more and more money, Real Madrid will be getting more and more money, and it will just cement the gap that already exists in so many of Europe's leagues between the top end clubs and the bottom end. And there won't be, it was the same with Project Big Picture as well, there won't be a Leicester story ever again if we kind of just give in to this over kind of consumerist capitalistic narrative that's now starting to dominate, well, attempting to dominate football, which in my mind is mainly coming from the American side. You know, the two English teams that have supported Project Big Picture then, and then now the European Super League, are both owned by American owners, and America has seen so much franchisement of sport over the last, I mean, it's always been that way. I don't think it's compatible with European sporting values. I think it's kind of quite a damning view of the world that people are trying to do this to a sport that brings, you know, joy and happiness to so many millions of people all over the globe.
Yeah, it just, the timing of this also feels really insensitive. The timing of all these plans, and look, I know we haven't really addressed the $14.95 pay-per-view fee either on this show yet, but again, that also just feels like a bit of a stretch for clubs. And yeah, it's as you know, as a Liverpool fan, it's sometimes very hard to support the team, because there have been many off-field own goals, and I'm sure Ben can sympathize. It just sometimes feels like a bit of a losing battle at times. So yeah, I don't think I have much to add. I think you guys pretty much articulated the view, and fingers crossed we don't have to discuss it again, but inevitably I feel like we will at some point. So let's move on. I mean, we will move on to, as Joe called it, the money grabbers, and that we will move on to the Premier League. Here are the results so far. Obviously, Leeds last night, a very good performance away at Aston Villa, and actually we'll touch upon it now. I mean, Jay, Patrick Bamford, not many people thought he could make the step up, and against a Villa team that defensively look a lot more solid this year than they did last year. And obviously we saw what they did against Liverpool, but then they just seemed this week toothless, and Leeds pretty much ran right over them.
Yeah, I was guilty. I said in the first week that I thought that Patrick Bamford, you know, I was surprised by him because I didn't think that he was going to perform, but he just seems to keep on going. I don't know. Obviously, it might be another case for Pookie Party where, you know, he starts off really well and drops off, but at the moment he doesn't seem to be dropping off in form. And Aston Villa's side, who's really impressed in the last couple of weeks, just wasn't there defensively. Offensively, I thought Jack Grealish, even though they didn't even score in this game. But I don't know if you watched the game, but one of the runs that Jack Grealish made, he couldn't find the end product, was just absolutely insane. And I think technically he has come so far in the last two seasons, and I think we're going to see so much more. And I hope we're going to see so much more from Jack Grealish, especially on the England scene, even though Gareth Southgate seems reluctant for whatever reason to start him at the moment. But my God, he is one hell of a player.
Yeah, I gathered the one person who probably didn't enjoy his evening was Gabriel Bonglahor, who made a lot of comments about how Villa were really going to take Leeds to the cleaners, and then lo and behold, the opposite happens. Joe, I mean, the Marcelo Bielsa revolution rolls on, and I read something about, I think Stevie Nichols said on ESPN, actually, he said he feels that Leeds need to pick up as many points as they can early on in the season because they're such a high energy team at the moment that it does feel like, do you see them dropping off ever in their energy? And do you agree then with Stevie Nichols' view that that Leeds need to kind of get as many points as they can now before the inevitable, or maybe not inevitable, drop off happens?
I find myself habitually disagreeing with most things that Stevie Nichols says, but to be honest, I think he might just be about right here. Leeds definitely, they are kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team of obviously someone who is as tactically astute as Marcelo Bielsa. For me, they have rocked up differently in every Premier League game I've seen of them so far this season. You never really know what Leeds you're going to get, which is part of the reason why I think I underrated them going into this season, and why they could probably finish as high as 12th or 13th, maybe even higher if injuries and potential fixtures go their way. they look really good in this game. Personally, I don't think Villa looked particularly bad, judging from what I've seen. Jack Grealish, I did see that run as well. It was very impressive. Even Ross Barkley, for me, obviously he's always been regarded for what he can do, bringing the ball forward with his feet. But again, he looked pretty good in this game as well. So it was a case of Leeds attacking well and defending well. As for Patrick Bamford, I mean, Jay criticised him on the first week. I went a hell of a lot further than that. I didn't think he was Premier League ready whatsoever. And yeah, I've been completely proven wrong by him so far this season. He's definitely in contention for a national team, whichever one he eventually chooses to declare for going into the Euros next year. And it was some recompense to see that the Radio 1 DJ Chris Stark deciding to drink a massive glass of red wine last night after having taken Patrick Bamford out of his fantasy team about 40 minutes before this game kicked off. So in a game between two massive overperformers so far in the Premier League, we got treated to what would have been a year or so ago, not really that hyped up of a game, but actually one of the better Premier League fixtures I've seen so far this season. So credit Leeds, credit Marcelo Bielsa. Both of these teams looking pretty damn good going off this season.
Don't mention fantasy like that, Joe. I brought in Ollie Watkins for this week, and lo and behold, he blanks against Leeds. So that's a sore subject for me. And actually, there is the Raw Ball Sport League that people can join as well, which I've not made a great start. I don't know if Jay or Ben play FPL, but I've had a mixed start. But I've brought in Harry Kane this time, so I'm hoping for good things.
ACL tear this weekend, guaranteed.
No. Don't say that. Don't say that. Right. The other result that we have a full-time result for is West Ham Man City, and that ended up 1-1. And Ben, I mean, have West Ham become the most confusing team to predict? Because as far as I know, we keep writing them off, but then they keep delivering against the odds.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, I do play fantasy, and every week if I see they're up against West Ham, I'll probably captain a player who they're playing against, and then they always seem to prove you wrong. I mean, the first thing that jumps to mind when I see that fixture is City dropping silly points again. Not great for them. But then I just think credit to West Ham and David Moyes, to be honest. They had a very difficult transfer market. I think there's a lot of problems in that club behind the scenes. And I think they are a very interesting and very complex club. But credit to the management, credit to some of those players who are coming out there and playing. Mikel Antonio, I think, has been fantastic. And I think that I wrote them off completely at the start of the season. I was like, okay, yeah, relegated. But then I think they've got a real shot now. And to take, in the last couple of weeks, to take 2 points from Spurs and City is a tremendous result if you were fighting relegation or looking to stay in the league. So hopefully they can just build on that.
Yeah, and Jay, I mean, we talk. I mean, we'll get on to Liverpool in a bit. We talk about how the Van Dijk injury, for some people, it swings the title balance towards Man City. Does this type of result convince you of City's credentials, or does it still just throw the season into a whole lot of doubt as to who's going to come up on top in the end?
At this point in the season, I genuinely have no idea who's going to win the Premier League. I would think that maybe Liverpool might be able to replicate last year, but it's just, like you said, they lost 17 to Villa, and now they've lost Van Dijk, which with an ACL injury will be the rest of the season. And I don't think Fabinho and Gomez ever looked too convincing at the back. But Man City haven't been having a brilliant season either. And, they drew today against West Ham, and then they lost to Leicester 5-2. And it's just a mess. Dare I say it, I think Everton have got quite a good chance this season. I've been really impressed by how they're playing so far. I think under Ancelotti and the improvements they've made to the midfield, like Alan and Rodriguez, have been absolutely fantastic. But I'm not sure Man City have it in the locker this season. I'm worried about Liverpool now after that injury to Van Dijk. And I think that Everton have been playing pretty convincingly at the moment. So I'm going to say Everton.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Joe, because, if West Ham on paper should be a team Man City should be beating, and yet, where do you fall on this result? Do you give credit to West Ham, or do you kind of look at City and go 2 points dropped?
they shouldn't be dropping points against against West Ham United, but also Tottenham Hotspur shouldn't be conceding 3 goals in 10 minutes against West Ham United. So, yeah, I, like Ben was saying, that they'd be in the relegation zone at the beginning of the season. They've done really well. Not really in this game, though. It was mostly soaking up Man City's attacking pressure, which actually wasn't as high as you perhaps would have expected. I mean, it's just not a great game to watch or to follow or anything. It seemed, even though it was a surprise result on paper, it did seem kind of dead from what I could tell. Michail Antonio's had a really good start to the season, of course. His clutch factor, even though he's not a player with outstanding attributes, he does seem to show up in big games like this. The real takeaway from this one for me, well, there's 2. Manchester City have played 5 games so far this season. They have dropped points in 3 of them. That is not good form, even relative to Manchester City's pretty poor season last year. So I might even say, although it's probably too early to call it, I really don't think Man City have a good chance of winning the Premier League this year. I would still put Liverpool, Van Dijk or not, significantly ahead of them in terms of first team quality in particular. The other one, though, is a prediction that I think I actually have gotten right this year, which is that Phil Foden is proving to be one of the most crucial players in all of the top 6. In a team of players that seem to be underperforming from the creative side and a team that lacks so much end product. Again, Phil Foden got the goal in this game, saved something from this result for Manchester City. He is going to be absolutely critical in a fixture condensed season with European pressures as well. Yeah, and he's had a fantastic start to the season despite what the rest of the team have looked like. But no, in this case, I think it was another just offensively insipid performance from Manchester City. And going off what Jay said, I don't know if I believe Everton have the momentum to keep it going throughout the season. But on current form, if you were to send me into the future and Everton finished ahead of Manchester City, yeah, I'd understand why.
Yeah, just quickly, Ben. I mean, we'll talk about United Chelsea next. So just want to get your thoughts really on Liverpool and City. Obviously, over the last 2 or 3 seasons, there's been a wide points gap between them and the chasing pack. Do you see what do you expect to see this season? Do you expect to be, obviously it'll be a much closer race, but do you expect those teams to have the edge again, given injuries and underwhelming performances so far?
I think, like Joe, I would have ranked Liverpool much higher position, even without Van Dijk at the moment. And I think that is a Liverpool team that really aren't too susceptible to injuries. Obviously, Van Dijk's picked up this one, but generally they're a very, very athletic, dynamic team. Man City have been completely underwhelming, and I think they were last season and have then gone and been even worse this season so far. So it's so impossible to call. It's such an odd season with the no fans and everything, and that can lead to really extreme score lines. So I think I can't predict who's going to win. And there's teams like Everton who are doing fantastic. I think Wolves have started well, but still they've dropped a few points. There's no out and out runner. And I think instead of maybe thinking, oh my God, I don't know how to predict it, we should enjoy it, because it hasn't been like this for a good few years now. It's been okay from the start of the season, good transfer window, they've pulled ahead, they're going to win. Whereas this season, the fact that we can't call it is something that is incredibly interesting and incredibly unique to football.
Yeah, and we'll talk. And it's certainly a season that certainly promises a lot of competitiveness down the final stretch. It'll be whether it does happen, that'll be something else to see, though. And quickly, before we talk about the other fixtures, there has been a goal in the Fulham Palace game. Palace now 2-0 up at Fulham. Wilfried Zaha scores and brings up his transfer value by a few million. Scores for Palace in their game against Fulham. In the Bundesliga, just quickly, Bayern won 5-0. Jamal Musiala, who obviously an Englishman, former Chelsea youth player, has scored for Bayern again. So he's had a very good start to his season so far. Just other significant results. Leipzig, they beat Hertha Berlin 2-1 thanks to a Marcel Sabitzer penalty. And in El Clasico, it is 2-1 Real Madrid. Sergio Ramos obviously scoring a penalty and putting Los Blancos ahead of Barcelona. And then in the Championship, Coventry City are losing 3-0, 10-man Coventry City losing 3-0 at Blackburn Rovers. In terms of other significant results, Swansea 1-0 up at Bristol City. Cardiff, Middlesbrough is a 1-1 draw. And Millwall, Barnsley 1-1 draw. Speaking of Pookie, you mentioned Pookie, Jay, he scored for Norwich, but it is a 1-1 draw against Wycombe Wanderers at the moment. Reading lead Rotherham, Stoke lead Brentford 3-0, which is quite a result so far. And obviously Bournemouth held Watford to a 1-1 draw. So that's sort of a Championship score update there. So I guess talking Man United Chelsea, the game that kicks off in half an hour, and there'll probably be I'll have a look for lineups. But while I do, Ben, does this feel like a must-win game this early on in the season, given what we said about the top two kind of having their little struggles at the moment? Does this feel like a must-win game for you, for United?
Yeah, I think it's a massive game for United and Chelsea. I think it's going to be interesting because it's almost a measure for both teams to see where they compare to last season. I think it's a difficult one to call. Again, you don't know what Man United team's going to turn up. We are on good form. There's rumours potentially Cavani could be in the squad. So, it'll be interesting. But also Chelsea, again, you don't know, have they quite gelled yet? Are they going to be ready? It's a difficult one to call. I'm nervous because I do think it's a critical game to win. I feel like if we lose, that sets us back another 2 weeks. The good results we've had, that's going to put us right back. And I feel like, again, if Chelsea lose, it will probably be damaging for them too. So it's a very important game for both sides, and it could lead to momentum that could elevate both of them to getting further up the table and pushing everyone else.
Just quickly before I show the lineups, obviously they beat much to Jay's disappointment, they beat Newcastle 4-1 last time out. Did that convince you obviously the PSG result obviously validates any confidence from that win, but was that a significant win to get one under the belt and then obviously go on to beat PSG and then heading into this weekend?
I think so, definitely. I think I was in the comments last week, and I think I was very negative again, and predicting a loss against Newcastle. I looked at my phone before the game, and just as it kicked off, I saw Luke Shaw on goal, and I thought, oh, here we go again. But then I think it was really good, especially as we had two defenders. So Harry Maguire scoring, I really hope that gives him a bit of confidence. And then, Wan-Bissaka scoring as well. Donny van de Beek, I thought was amazing off of the bench. I still kind of want to see him start, but I'm very happy with our midfield and the rotation we've got in there. So I know it's difficult to start all of them. I think there was a very important game. And I think, to be honest, if we'd have lost that game, that would have definitely completely changed the PSG result. So, yeah, very important game. Good result. And we just need to keep on building and keep on going.
Yeah, and I'm guessing you haven't seen the lineups yet for United today.
No, I haven't.
So this will be a live reaction, and that's what I wanted to see. Okay, so I've got the lineups here. Everyone can live react. So I've got both lineups. So we'll start with United's, and can everyone see the thing? Yes, they can. So it's unchanged, or at least that's what it says. Yeah, it's unchanged from the last Premier League game. Cavani is on the bench. So Ben, your first thoughts on this lineup? Tuanzebe's on the bench. Van der Beek's on the bench, Pogba, Cavani, Greenwood. What's your thoughts on this lineup?
Can't lie, I think the bench is actually stronger than what we've got starting. I'm not happy with that back four at all. I just think Timo Werner up front, if he is playing up front, or they have fast wingers like Lindelof and Maguire, that makes me extremely nervous. I think those channels between the fullback and centre back should be exploited by Chelsea. I think that's a thing. But maybe Fred's in there for some more energy in front of that back four. Daniel James, not quite. I know he's played well against Chelsea. Not quite sure if he's up to it. I'm happy to see Juan Mata playing actually because he's been really good. He's provided some stability for the team recently. So. I don't know, not surprised about the lineup, but that back four really does make me nervous.
Yeah, Joe Jay, before I kick it to Chelsea's lineup, any quick thoughts on this lineup that you see in front of you?
Nothing but echoing Ben's sentiments about the defence. I think they are going to really struggle against Timo Werner.
Yeah. Right. I'll flip it to Chelsea's now. And hang on, give me 1 sec while I work technology. And should be right here. All right. Does that work? Yeah. Cool. Everyone can see it.
Yeah,
yep. So there we go in full screen. So what do we reckon? It looks like he's playing 3 at the back, Lampard, and he's playing James and Chilwell as wing backs. I can only guess, and then a front 3 of Pulisic, Werner, and Havertz. So. No, I mean, Mason Mount is on the bench, which does sort of feel significant given how much he's played over the last few weeks. But Jay, I mean, this is a Chelsea side that were not, I mean, they let a 3-1, 3-2 lead against Southampton slip on last weekend. And then they kind of went back to shutting up shop against Sevilla. So does this lineup, Is this lineup one that's gonna beat United? How confident would you be in this lineup?
I saw the Man United lineup and I was like, Chelsea can really exploit this. But then I've just seen what Chelsea have got on their defence. Obviously, they haven't got Kepa in goal, which is obviously a big plus. But Azpilicueta, he was good. I remember Mourinho once saying, "Give me 11 Azpilicuetas and I'll win the Champions League." But he's getting older, and I think his game's really dropped off. Thiago Silva's really been struggling to adapt to the Premier League at the moment. And Kurt Zouma, he can be decent on some days, but he's putting some really mixed performances. What I'm really irritated about for the Chelsea lineup is the fact that they're going to be playing Havertz on the right again. He can play there, but he's just so much better in behind a striker. And it's just, I guess it's not Lampard's system to play someone there, but if he wants to get the best out of Havertz, because I'm not saying that Havertz is one of the best talents in the world at the moment, he needs to play him behind Werner. Because that's why he's always played. Yes, he's played a little bit on the right, but that was more of in a right forward role rather than out on the wing. And they absolutely need to get him back and behind Werner if they want to have any major impact with him in their starting lineup. Yeah,
Ben, I mean, Jay mentioned Thiago Silva's not had a great start. And obviously Chelsea's defence, as Southampton showed, it's a leaky one when you put pressure on it. So surely again, Rashford against that back line, that fills you up with a bit of confidence, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that would fill me up. However, I think Lampard's been clever in choosing a back 5, just eliminating the channels between right back and centre back, which Marcus Rashford loves, particularly that left-hand channel down there. So I think, Azpilicueta may provide some stability playing there. However, then saying that, Thiago Silva and Azpilicueta aren't the fastest 2 players. So if, Rashford should definitely target that area, I think it potentially is just going to be a game of whose defense is worse. I can't see it being too much more than that. Pretty decent midfields for both of them, good attacks and really, really poor defenses. So the plus for Chelsea is that Mendy's in goal. I'd have loved to have seen Kepa there for us, but obviously on the bench. So we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, Joe, I mean, you've seen both lineups here. I mean, any thoughts on what this game, will it be an open game as it looks like it could be, or do you reckon it'll be a very kind of, I don't want to say negative, but like a game where of few chances?
I mean, I've got 2 takes from this. I didn't actually have that much to say about the Man United lineup. I think these guys covered it pretty well. 2 things about this. Number 1, look in the comments section at FT Honesty, summing up the attitude of basically every Chelsea fan I've ever met. Looking at this one, it's just such an odd formational setup. I didn't even know they'd been playing Havertz on the right. I haven't seen too much of Chelsea. It makes absolutely no sense. I mean, if a wide midfield, Havertz is pretty good. Obviously not as good as he is down the middle, but if you're playing him as a flat-out winger, as a foil to Pulisic over on the other side, that's just not his role. You're completely wasting him. And also you're leaving Werner pretty isolated down the middle, which as a diminutive striker, only about 5'9", isn't ideal. And you haven't really got an advanced central midfielder. Jorginho and Kante are more of a pivot. Yes, Jorginho is an exemplary passer of the ball, but he's not an assister. He's the guy that provides the pass before the assist. If you're going to play this formation with wing backs, you would assume instead that they would use inside forwards as opposed to wingers. However, the problem with that is that neither Ben Chilwell nor Reece James are particularly great going forward. So yeah, it's just a really odd lineup overall in terms of the formation more than the players that they've picked. If you were going to try and even if you're going to keep playing Havertz out wide, it would make a lot more sense to have Mason Mount or someone similar down the middle to make sure Werner is actually getting some service through the middle, because from out wide, yeah, Manchester United's defense doesn't look incredible. But Wan-Bissaka and Shaw are defensively capable enough to stop some crosses coming in. So yeah, this could be a real lineup and personnel mismatch, I should say. Again, I don't want to predict it because anything can happen, but I actually have hope for Manchester United here.
Yeah, you pointed out the comment section. First of all, I love how he says he's declaring he'll support City, as if, I have no idea how. I'm not begrudging anyone who has an opinion on football, but just it's a very interesting choice. You're jumping ship from Chelsea to City, and yeah, it's an interesting one for me. But this is a game. This is a game that between two teams who have obviously aspirations. Obviously you'd expect them to compete for the top four, but they have aspirations of going further, and so it's going to be an interesting one. Unlike you, Joe, I'm going to try and predict it. And, I'm just going to say 2-2 because I feel like this will be an open game. I feel like there will be defensive mistakes galore, lapses, whole space, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to say 2-2. So I don't know if, Jay, do you want to, you're neutral here as well. So there's no fear of you jinxing any team because you're not involved in this game. So any thoughts on predicting?
I'll jump in. I guess, I've always been a massive Bundesliga fanboy, and I was really excited. Obviously, I was sad that Werner and Havertz were leaving, but Werner's scored 2 goals last game. I would just love it if Werner and Havertz really got going. But just one more point I want to make on the game, actually. I was just thinking what Joe was saying about playing with the wingers and the entire system that Frank Lampard is operating. If he wants to get the most out of Havertz and Werner, I think he really does need to think about a pretty significant shift in terms of tactics. Because I was just thinking about how Leipzig used to play. Leipzig don't actually play with wingers. They play with those cams behind. And it's just, Werner will be isolated in the system because he's not used to playing this system. He's not used to playing on his own up front with wingers. We saw it with Joe Linton last season. Players who are forced to play out of their position often struggle. And obviously he scored 2 goals last week, and I hope he continues to fit in. But I am quite worried about him, and especially about Havertz being played out on the right. But I'm hopeful. I hope they can bring it together today. And yeah, I'll say 3-2 Chelsea. Havertz goal and 2 Werner goals. There you go. Yeah. Ben, do you have any? Did the lineups boost your confidence? Does it change your prediction at all? And what is your prediction?
I think the Man United lineup lowered my confidence, but then Joe's analysis of Chelsea has just risen it again. So I think I am going to go for a 3-2 United win with a Cavani winner. Okay,
that would be quite the introduction to his new club. Joe, I know you didn't want to say you wanted to make a prediction. I'm going to just poke you and say make one.
3-1 Manchester United, and Harry Maguire is going to have an absolute stunner.
He did. Did he score in the last game at Stamford Bridge? Ben, you might remember this more than me, but I feel like he did.
I think. He may have done in the cup.
I feel like there was a game last season where he got the better of Chelsea. So we'll see what happens. That's probably the game of the weekend. You look at it. Jay. Wolves. As you being the Newcastle fan, Wolves away is a tough fixture. Any thoughts on that? Are you worried? Are you excited? What's the thoughts behind those games? That game?
I am worried because I was reading an article in The Athletic, and we had conceded 82 shots already this season in the Premier League alone. And that is, for any, especially for a team who plays defensive football, that is absolutely abysmal. And the fact that we struggled to beat Newport, we got thrashed by Man. Yes, there were some good moments in that Man United game. Darlow saved a penalty, and I've been really impressed by Darlow so far. But for a team that plays defensive football, it has been absolutely woeful defensively, just sloppy all over. And yes, we've had some good results against, Burnley and West Ham, but against a team like Wolves, who, Raul Jimenez, he hasn't had the best season so far, but also he can really punish when he wants to. And I think Podence has been good this season as well. And I think if Wolves are on their attacking A game, I think we could absolutely destroyed. I'm not hopeful at all.
Well, we've seen strange results in the Premier League scene. Never really know, as the Villa and Leeds game kind of shows. Any team can be kind of beaten, even if they're in good form. So, fingers crossed for you for Newcastle, Joe. I mean, any other game that we haven't talked about stand out across the slate? I mean, we've obviously talked about the two sort of top tier ones, I guess, in terms of United, Chelsea, and we've talked about Arsenal, Leicester earlier with Ed. Does any of these games stand out to you?
Brighton versus West Bromwich Albion is one that I might actually watch myself. Brighton have had a really difficult run of fixtures at the start of the season, hence why they're so low in the table. But if they are actually going to live up to the lofty expectations that I've put on them, they need to win the games like these, and they need to win them convincingly. If Brighton, for me, need to win this game by multiple goals to look like the genuine high mid-table team that I've got them slated to be, because yeah, they've had difficult fixtures, but ultimately they haven't got an awful lot from these difficult fixtures. So this is actually, for me, one of the more important games of the weekend. Judging from Brighton's result, this could be the indicator between about 6 or 7 positions in the Premier League, which may even bring them down into that relegation zone. As for Wolves versus Newcastle, I didn't know the situation was as dire for Newcastle defensively as it was. I was actually thinking earlier that they'd do quite well against Wolves, because I haven't really been convinced with what Wolves have put up so far this season going forward. The issue is that, yes, Karl Darlow's been decent recently, but I really rate Martin Dubravka, and he's actually pretty damn good at stopping shots from out wide. Wolves, we know what they do with their wingers. We know the amount of shots they pull off from players like Adama Traore. Is Karl Darlow going to be able to keep up that same performance? I'm not entirely sure. It's going to be a difficult game. Difficult to call as well. I feel like it's going to be a draw. But again, I wouldn't want to jinx it for Jay's sake.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I think Wolves, I mean, they picked up a pretty big win on Monday against Leeds. Regardless if they deserved it or not, it's a pretty big result against a team that looks good, and obviously looked good on Friday night as well. So we'll see what happens with that one. I think Joe, you talk about the lack of defensive games. Well, Burnley, Spurs, a Sean Dyche team versus a Jose Mourinho team. Surely that might whet your appetite defensively.
I mean, West Ham scoring 3 goals in the last 10 minutes against Spurs has kind of lowered my impression of them a little bit. I mean, I said this a few weeks ago. Burnley versus Newcastle was the game I was most looking forward to on that weekend, because it would have some exemplary defensive football. 4 goals were scored in the game. So, yeah, I mean, I'm expecting Spurs to win, though, if you want a prediction.
No, I was trying to, last week we lamented defensive performances across the continent. So I'm just trying to find you one there, Joe. Southampton Everton for me looks like an interesting one as well. I'm very interested to see Hassan Hussein against Ancelotti, and if James Rodriguez plays, it's been unclear whether he will play, won't play. I don't really know. We're interested to see what Dominic Calvert-Lewin can do without James Rodriguez, because he's not been tested yet in that. So. We do have a little bit of time, so I guess we can talk about some of the European games coming up. And when I'm seeing it said, obviously not the Champions League, I mean Europa League. Although actually, Joe, Europa League, you and I talked about Young Boys versus Roma, and I was very happy at the first half, and then by the end, you got the last laugh. Do you have any quick thoughts on Roma for that?
I mean, luckily I was sleeping before I had to go to work, so I didn't see an awful lot of the game. It's one of the very rare occasions where Paulo Fonseca, the manager, excelled in terms of his substitutions, which was basically piling on first-team players to readjust the course of the game. Wonderful to see Maroš Kumbula, our young Albanian signing from Hellas Verona, who was, for me, a team of the season centre-back for the whole league last year, getting his first goal for the club, announcing himself. He also says he's loving it at the club, which obviously I'm really happy to see. It was good to see a good result as well with the COVID-19 concerns for Gianluca Mancini. He is now tested negative, so thank God he's going to be available to play AC Milan in a few days. Chris Smalling still isn't available. He's injured because he's a Roma centre-back. That's what tends to happen. But yeah, far from a convincing performance in the first half. I'm really worried about the state of some of our rotation players. Borja Mayoral, the striker that we've loaned in for 2 years from Real Madrid. People always say he's so good. Oh, he's a good striker. You know, he's got so many individual abilities. Yeah, but when you look at his highlight reels, there's not an awful lot of goal scoring. And in this game, it looked like a continuation of that. Also terrifying that after being told in the summer transfer window that Juan Jesus was not part of the club's plans and would not be called up again, he was in the matchday squad and indeed started the game as part of the three at the back formation alongside Federico Fazio, who was also on the course of leaving the club about 3 times to different Serie A clubs this summer. So yeah, I mean, some hangovers from the transfer window, not being able to get rid of the players that we wanted to, which in turn stopped us from getting the players that we really needed. But I'm happy that we got a win away in Switzerland. Young boys aren't a bad side. I'm sorry for you that you didn't get a Swiss team winning, but at least some of my blushes were spared coming out of this game.
It's fine. It's classic young boys. Just controlled the game for most of it, and then 2 defensive errors, and suddenly you lose 2-1. So it's not. I mean, and I'm far from being a young boys fan. Just yeah, like I said, not many Swiss representation. So bit of a bummer there for me, but that's fine. I guess, you know, you mentioned Milan-Roma. Milan, arguably the form team of Italy at the moment. They look very good. And how many goals do you think they'll score against Roma?
Well, it's going to be Mirante in Roma's goal as opposed to Pau Lopez, who's had some issues over the last few months. So I feel like it could go either way, but you know how much I really dislike AC Milan as a football team. But there's no question that they had a better summer transfer window. They're deeper. I'd say they're less affected by injuries. Zlatan is just defying the laws of biology at this rate. I mean, I think it's going to be a Milan win. I don't think it's going to be by a lot, probably only by 1 goal. But I'm just hoping for a good showing, really, because we're only 8th in the table at the moment. Obviously, Milan I think they're still at the top of Serie A. They looked fantastic in the Derby della Madonnina against Inter as well. Yeah, that's what swung it. Milan are going to win, but I think it's going to be a good game overall from both teams. Hopefully. Yeah. Fingers crossed. I didn't realize El Clasico was going to be at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, so that's a bit of a bummer because we can't really discuss it because we haven't really seen it. But I guess broadcasting schedules go out the window these days. So I guess we could finish off with a combined 11 because I feel like that'd be a fun thing to do. And we looked at Chelsea and United's team lineups in depth, so why don't we do a combined 11 of those 2 teams? So I guess in goal, would Mendy be first choice? Would it be De Gea? Ben, who would you take in a combined 11?
De Gea's really impressed me recently. He's been in good form and he was really good against PSG and Newcastle. So I feel like you would just edge it just because we haven't seen enough of Mendy.
All right. Anyone disagree? Anyone want to go with a different goalkeeper? Dean Henderson obviously is there as well, who has yet to sniff any first team action as well. So yeah, okay, we'll go with De Gea. Right back. I mean, I don't even know what formation you guys want to play, but let's just assume there's a right back or right wing back. Obviously Reece James, Wan-Bissaka. You could put Azpilicueta there as well. Anyone have a strong preference for any of them?
Wan-Bissaka 100%. Just to watch him against Newcastle, he was absolutely fantastic, and obviously he got a goal against us. I don't really think Chelsea's got any. I mean, James is good, but he's no Wan-Bissaka.
All right. I feel like we're getting consensus on that one.
James isn't even a bona fide right back.
No, he's not. Yeah. He's not good defensively. He can go forward, but defensively, no, not a chance.
Yeah. I mean. By the way, anyone have a strong preference towards a formation? Because at the moment, I'm just going to do 4-3-3, but I don't really. All right, we'll just stick with that. Centre backs,
just as is necessary.
Centre backs. Who do we think out of the 2 teams? If you had to put together a centre back pairing, I mean,
on paper, I'd say Thiago Silva, but I am not going to put him forward after the first few games of this season.
Right. Do we? I mean, at one stage, Harry Maguire's name would have been laughable, but do we seriously put him forward as one of the centre backs?
I'd be more. I'd want to put Twanzebe through. I genuinely think that out of all of those centre backs there, Twanzebe would have to be in one of the two.
All right. Yeah. Anyone got another? I mean, thinking of Chelsea centre backs, Christensen,
Zuma.
Rudiger, Zuma. Okay.
Rudiger and Christensen aren't even starting.
Right.
Rudiger's on the bench. They were trying to ship him off at the end of the window. So much though I love the guy, I don't think he's in the picture.
So would a centre back pairing of Twanzebe and Zuma satisfy everyone here?
I think
It could even be Twanzebe Maguire. No, maybe not.
It's a pretty damning assumption of the two centre-backs at centre-backs teams is we are struggling to pick a second centre-back.
I don't think there's not one centre-back there who is good in terms of like we can solidly put forward. There's not one.
I think Twanzebe was definitely. I mean, I watched a bit of the PSG game, the highlights, and he was just basically just had Neymar and Mbappe in his pocket for the entire game. He worked so well with Wan-Bissaka and confronting their attack. But yeah, I think Zuma is probably the best. I would agree with that. I don't think Rudiger has been pretty woeful for Germany in the international games, in the friendlies, and in the Nations League recently. So I think Zuma is probably. He's not brilliant, but he's better than the other options that we've got going.
Yeah. So then we swing to left back. And it does feel like England versus England, Chilwell versus Luke Shaw. Unless, Ben, you want to put forward Brandon Williams as well. That's another option. Or Marcus Alonso, if we really want to open.
No, absolutely not.
Emerson Palmieri. Oh no, is he on loan? I can't remember if he's on loan at the moment. But I guess you could stick him in as well. But I'm guessing the consensus is going to say Ben Chilwell. Yeah. Okay.
I love Emerson. I love Emerson Palmieri, and I genuinely still think in the right system he could be better than Ben Chilwell. But it's difficult to justify picking him when he's not even playing. So it's kind of Chilwell by default.
Right. Okay. So let's go with centre midfielders. I'm thinking we'll at least have one right winger, one left winger, a centre forward, and then I guess 3 centre midfielders. You can mix it up: defensive, attacking, centre midfielders, whatever you want to do. So. In terms of centre midfield, we have obviously, if we look at United, you have Pogba, Fred, McTominay, Matic. Ben will fill me in if there's one I've forgotten. I think those are the main 4 really.
Fernandes, if you put.
Oh yes, of course, Bruno Fernandes. You could also stick maybe Juan Mata there as well, and then on the Chelsea side, Jorginho, Kante, Kovacic, Mount. Again, if I'm missing one, if you want to play Havertz there as well, we could stick him there as well. So, what's everyone's thought? I mean, is Fernandes a lock? Do we say Fernandes as a lock to get into this combined team?
Definitely.
Yeah, I think Fernandes has to be in there. I think for form reasons as well.
All right. So we have Bruno, and then Kante normally would get in, right? Do we on the consensus that he gets in, Joey?
He's looked better recently than he did in the second half of last season. Bear in mind there was a chance throughout the summer that it was looking pretty likely that he was going to go to Inter on account of his bad form, but he's actually improved quite a lot recently. Again, very telling that he starts this game. Kovacic doesn't. I don't know if he's guaranteed though. Well, I don't know if I'd necessarily pick him outright over Kovacic or Jorginho.
Let me rephrase the question. Is there any other United midfielder that's a deadlock to get in besides Bruno? No, right?
Not a lock, but there's contenders.
Yeah. And then, on the Chelsea side, is there anyone that should be 100% in?
I want to say Havertz, but we've already got a Cam already. But I think Havertz.
That's the thing; it's unbalanced. Yeah. I love Havertz, and I think, on paper, what he can do from that central area, The problem is that you've then got 5 attacking players.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so if we look at whoever plays the pivot role for United,
can we change to a 4-5-1 so you can play Havertz and Bruno?
Yeah. Why not? Cool. Yeah, sure. So hang on. So I guess we have one more centre midfield spot to fill, and if we're thinking defensive, then McTominay, Matic, Fred on the United side, maybe Pogba if you can trust him as a number 6. I'm guessing the answer is no. On the other side, Jorginho, Kovacic could arguably play that role. Any of those names like boom, like comes like have that instant effect, or is it really that hard to close to call?
I mean, it's not a boom, but I was really impressed by Kovacic last season. He's not been as good this season, but I thought he put on a phenomenal performance last season. So for me, Kovacic, but obviously it's not like a lock in. I'd really struggle to pick anyone out of that lot.
Yeah. Ben, do you think any, I mean, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I always like in a CDM more of a dynamic Kante or Fred, but I'd say all of those players are almost bang average. So to me, I'd go with Kante, but for defensive balance, but I don't think there's much in this at all. I think you could put anyone there.
Joe, you have the casting sort of vote here.
Yeah, I've got the casting vote. Jay's gone for Kovacic. Ben's gone for Kante. How convenient that I choose Jorginho of all of that lot. So insert Chelsea CDM. I think of the two of these guys, I think I would, on balance, thing is we're picking a lot of players for this team based on form so far this year. So I think I would go Kovacic based on how convincing he was last year.
Okay.
But yeah, I really quite like all of the players that were in that discussion. Like even Fred, I've been a fan of for a long time. So I think it's one of the few areas in the pitch where there's a genuinely difficult choice because there are some good players.
Right. Well, here's what we've got so far. So now it leaves 2 wingers and a number and a centre forward. So what's easier? I mean, on the right wing, you have Pulisic. You have
Pulisic plays left wing.
Oh, sorry. Okay, you have. I mean,
we can play both, can't we?
Many plays left.
We can. All right. Let me just list all wingers, and we can decide who fills out which spots. So I guess for United, Greenwood can obviously play on the wing. Rashford can play on the wing. Yeah.
Yep.
Martial could even play on the wing. Daniel James, and then on the Chelsea side, I'm just picking out the main names. Pulisic, Ziyech. Obviously, Ziyech we haven't seen much of yet, but he's an option. Am I missing anyone? I mean, you can stick Werner on the wing as well if you like.
If you want to waste him, sure.
Yeah. Just options, Joe. Options. Hudson-Odoi as well. So, what do we reckon? I mean, this is where it gets a lot tricky, doesn't it?
For me, I think Pulisic on the left, 100%.
Okay.
I'm slightly biased as half American, but I think he is a brilliant player, and I think he proved that after Corona last season. He was just assists, goals to no end. I think he's absolutely bags of potential.
Ben, with the United point of view, anyone that I listed or didn't list should be in this?
Marcus Rashford. I just think credit to what he's done off the pitch as well. I'm not going to affect the rules. I just feel like you need to bung him in there. But and Timo Werner, I agree with Pulisic, and I think Timo Werner, and then between Timo Werner, Mason Greenwood. I don't know.
I mean, we could have a front three of Rashford, Werner, and Pulisic.
Yeah, that would.
It would mean pushing. I guess Werner's more effective on the right than Rashford would be. But on paper, I agree with them.
Those three are all quite mobile. Like they can interchange.
If they were dynamic, I think that. Yeah, I mean, if I had those players and had to make a front three of them, I'd be happy. So.
All right.
Werner has experience on the right for Germany in the national team last year in the Nations League, which to be fair, he played pretty well. Like just interchanging with him and Gnabry between the two positions, I thought they were quite well.
All right, there we go. I've just updated it. So that's sort of our combined 11 who defensively I'd still be worried. But going forward, I'd have no issues. I think that would be the sort of consensus. And indeed, that with this kind of lineup, that kind of brings our show to an end. I know we ran a little bit over, but I hope that's okay with everyone. So thanks, as always, to Joe Spagnoli. Thanks, Jay and Ben, for coming back on. And yeah, we'll be back next week with another Quaran-Stream. Obviously, we'll have Champions League action again to look back at, Premier League action to look forward to. I know United play Arsenal on Sunday next week, so it doesn't get easier for Ben and his nerves. But we'll be back with another Quaran-Stream on Saturday, and then Wednesday we hopefully will have another set of Raw Sport interview to come. That just needs a few more details need sorted out. But we'll get that to you. So until then, thank you for watching and enjoy your weekend.